I teach middle school math in Walled Lake, Michigan. And in my particular district, we have really large classroom sizes. My classes typically have between 32 and 35 kids, and there's just one of me. And so, an issue that I've run into in my classroom is that I've been struggling to get to every single kid and give each student individualized feedback every hour, every day. 58 minutes is not enough time to touch base with every single student if I've got 35 kids and just one me. So I've been using a tool called Snorkl. Snorkl is an AI tool that lets students record their voice while drawing or typing on a digital whiteboard to explain their thinking process. On Snorkl, there's a really big library of prompts and questions for different subject levels, different grade levels, all that sort of stuff. And so you can pick a prompt or create your own from scratch. And you can create a class for your students where they select the prompt that you've assigned them. They will record their voice explaining their work, explaining their thinking, while solving it, on the actual screen itself. And then once they're done with that, you will get to see what their submission is, but you also get to see AI feedback that the students are also given. So as soon as they submit their work, Snorkl has feedback with timestamps to their recording, and it'll leave comments such as, "Great job splitting up the composite shape into 3 rectangles." But it'll also ask questions to help push their thinking a little further. And the cool thing with Snorkl too is that you can allow students to have unlimited retries or be able to submit their work over and over again. So how I've used this is, let's say a student submits their work and they get like a 2 out of 4. They can look at the feedback that Snorkl gives them and then try again based on that feedback, and you'll see that growth happening. It's kind of forcing them to practice and actually see those changes and then adjust based on the feedback that they're given. It is mostly a free resource. I will say if you do 20 activities, you kind of hit like a limit. That's where it stops the free source. But there's a roundabout workaround to this where you can delete your class of students and then create a new class, and it should reset back to 0. So you can keep going with activities. And one other thing I will say is with student work, let's say you're using this with elementary students. Snorkl does a really good job of being able to analyze their work if there's spelling errors, punctuation errors, all that sort of stuff. It does a really good job of interpreting student work too. And yeah, I think that's all I got about Snorkl. So, nice. Question.
You mentioned something that made me think, were you putting in things that you had done in class, like into there and then having them do that same question, or what was that piece?
Yeah, so they have an online library, or you can create your own question. And that question that you give them, it could be a question from your curriculum. You could totally create it, from scratch. But I tend to assign students problems based on what we're doing currently. So for example, if I am teaching my students about box and whisker plots, I did this with my students this past year. I gave them a prompt where it had a box and whisker plot, and they had to identify the 5-number summary. So like I made it specific to what I was teaching, but Snorkl has this really vast library where there's a bunch of pre-made problems too.
And other subjects or math?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Math, science, ELA, there's world languages, history, and there's even like secondary education, like higher ed chemistry and biology. There's music as well. Gym, I remember, is on there. So it has a super, I know, it has a super like wide range of questions, which I think makes it accessible for a lot of different classrooms.
Sorry, you mentioned the size, so it's like unlimited class size, or how does that work? And then
Yeah.
20 activities limit.
Yeah, but then you can just delete your class. And I will say too, so if I were to do this activity in my room of 35 kids, it also does a really good job of isolating the vocals of the student that's speaking. So like it does a really good job of focusing on the student who's actively speaking to their computer and not really picking up the voices around it, which is also really cool if it's a loud room.
Create your own custom activity features.
Yeah, so there's the library, but you also create your own prompt. You get to create your own rubric so that Snorkl knows what kind of feedback you're looking for too. Yeah. The pre-made activities already have a rubric in there so that students are being graded or given feedback on that rubric, but you can create your own too.